Hi folks, this is Dr. Rob Cywes. I am the CarbAddictionDoc. And today's video, we're going to talk about what I call keto clutter. Keto clutter. What the hell does that mean? Well, the reason we become fat, the reason we become diabetic is because of a dysfunctional emotional management system, where we use carbohydrates and snacking as a dominant, excessively used pathway of emotional relief that eventually causes harm. And when we get rid of the carbohydrates in the snacks, we have to replace them with a healthy ketogenic diet, a high-fat, low-carbohydrate diet. But we also have to understand the mental health ramifications and really work on building up what I call an effort-based system. And I talk a lot about that on this channel. However, there's been something very pertinent that's happened over the last few months. I've had a number of patients, particularly under COVID, who've come in and have had relatives die of COVID. Now, COVID is a horrible, nasty virus, but it shouldn't kill us. It should not kill us. It can make us sick. It can make us not even notice that we became sick, except maybe we lose some smell and taste. But the people, the commonest people that die from COVID or have really bad outcomes are metabolically deranged people. Immunosuppressed, yes, but the majority, it's about obesity, it's about diabetes, which is really about chronic excessive carbohydrate consumption. And I've had a number of family members come in who've lost a relative of COVID. And what they have to do, apart from mourning those relatives, is they have to go to their living spaces and clean it up. Because when you die, you can't take your stuff with you. You can't take your stuff with you. So somebody has to come behind you and clean that up. And it's amazing for me how many stories I've heard of relatives that have died, and when the families go in, there's just this hordes and hordes of shit that they've accumulated and collected. Whether it is collections such as beanie dolls or sugar spoons or whatever the collections are, stamp collections, whatever it may be. I'm going to come to that in a second. But these families have just hoarded and they've got so much stuff. And hoarding is as much a dysfunctional emotional management response. We keep stuff, we can't throw stuff away, as eating sugar and starch. It's a dysfunctional way of helping us to cope. And as you go on a ketogenic diet, if you're still one of the people that's alive and living and trying to do better by adopting a ketogenic approach, try to unclutter your lives. Because part of the emotional dysfunction is when you cling onto all this clutter. I have no problem if you're an active, avid collector and you love to collect stamps or you love to collect whatever the collections are. I'm not talking about people who are actively collecting stuff. What I'm talking about is people who have all these collections stuffed into a cupboard somewhere. Beanie Baby collections. I mean, I remember it was 20, 30 years ago when we did Beanie Babies. So what are you doing with all that clutter? What are you doing with all this stuff? And you cling onto it and you hoard it. It is still part of a dysfunctional brain. And one of the most cathartic things that can happen as your self-esteem and your self-confidence grows is you can let go of your shit, your worldly shit. Cleanse yourself. If you're going to cleanse yourself of carbohydrates and live a healthier biologic life, why not cleanse yourself of unnecessary clutter in your practical life? And the act of going through that so that your relatives don't have to do that after you die is incredibly liberating. It's as liberating, if not more so, than getting rid of the carbohydrates. And I can tell you, I'm not telling you to do this because I'm one of them. I've collected all kinds of shit in my life. And the beauty of my wife, Janae, she's at such a level that she often calls me out on this and says, dude, let it go. When I came to this country as a young 20-year-old, I came with a backpack and a small suitcase and $1,000. Now it takes 2 darn moving trucks to move me. Well, it did until Janae came into my life. And she's helped me to have my own resilience, to have my own self-esteem, to have my own self-respect, to say, hey, I don't need that stuff. And it's been so cathartic to unclutter. So as you go down a ketogenic pathway, simultaneous to that, unburden yourself from psychologic hoarding, all that stuff that you haven't processed, that you've kept in here. Because if you're trapped in the past, and if you're trapped in your memories of the past, you cannot enter the future, which is where you want to go on a ketogenic way of life. Don't trap yourself in the psychological clutter of your past. It is your past. You can't change it. Learn to live with it. Learn to discard it. Learn to toss it out of your brain. But also practically toss out the shit that you've collected, that you cling on to, that has no value. If you got a beautiful wedding set 40 years ago when you got married, and it sits in a cupboard and you use it once a year on Thanksgiving, haul it out because your kids are going to give it to Goodwill. Haul it out and celebrate every meal on the best china that you can. And if it breaks, so what? Because you ain't taking it with you. The devil and God do not want it. And certainly the worms can't eat off those plates. Get rid of the clutter. Use it up. Throw it away if you don't use it. Clean up, clean up, clean up. I personally am moving offices at the end of this month, the end of April. And we're going through stuff that I've hoarded for years. And it's so cathartic just to say, hey, I don't need this anymore. Yeah, memories are fine. But I don't need boxes and boxes of memory to gather dust. Keto is about clutter. It's about psychological liberation. And create smoothness, create simplicity. Don't clutter your life with too much structure, too much stuff, and too many memories of the past. This is about your future. And it can be smooth, it can be streamlined, it can be devoid of all that clutter. It is so cathartic, it is so empowering, because you don't need those things to live your life. They're a ball and chain that keep you in the past. And a keto lifestyle will be successful if you enter the future somewhat naked to build a new life for yourself. You don't need that stuff, folks. You don't need that stuff. Simplify yourself. Unclutter yourself psychologically and physically. Keto declutter. It's part of who you're going to be. It's not just about not eating sugar and starch. If you want to learn more, if you're struggling with this, give us a shout, 561-517-0642, text or call, and we'll set up a visit. But think this through. And I know most of you are going to say, oh, I'm going to have this. Before you vomit out a response in the comment section, I love the comments. Take a day or two. Look at your world. Look at your environment. And ask yourself, is the clutter necessary? Then leave a comment. Come back. Please let me know. Leave a comment. I've made you think. You may disagree. You may yell and shout at me right now. But if I've made you think, if I've made you introspect about who you are and where you're going, I've done my job. My opinion, my humble opinion. But I see it all too often. And ask yourself, if you die tomorrow, what will your relatives do with your shit? I am the CarbAddictionDoc. Unclutter your mind, unclutter your life. Take care till next time.